All right, just thanks for coming in. To start off, can you please introduce yourself and the position that you're running for?
Yeah, my name is Marley Yancey. I am a second year in the College of Arts and Sciences, and I am running for Vice President of Finance.
Great. So can you talk about your experience in USG so far, what positions you've held, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so I have held the position of first year representative, College of Arts and Sciences rep, and within the Finance Committee specifically, I've been secretary for 2 years, and I'm finishing up my first year as treasurer. So I've been very heavily involved in that committee.
Great. So tell me about your platform. Why do you want to be the VP of Finance?
So I actually joined finance committee as kind of like it wasn't my first choice committee, but I really loved the people and the work that we do. I love getting to meet all the people who want to start new clubs. And I enjoy like doing the reimbursements and all of that. So that's kind of why I want to continue working in the finance committee. The reason that I want to be VP finance specifically is that I think it'd be really enjoyable to lead the committee, and I would love to like make the funding process a little easier for clubs. I know that this is a big source of stress for clubs because they're either using their own money and then getting reimbursed from us later. So my platform is to increase the efficiency of that process. I know Basil, who's the current VP of Finance, has started working with Todd already on trying to get CF cards to students earlier so that they don't have to use their own money, which would decrease the amount of teenies. So kind of making sure that all the budgets are closed so that that can happen. And then also we do president treasurer workshops and like just treasurer workshops generally every month or so. And I would love to get like little videos of things that are talked about in those presentations just clearly set up on the USG website so club treasurers can navigate directly to what their question is rather than having to, sit through like a 30-minute to an hour long recording to get their questions answered.
I don't think I've ever heard someone say that they enjoy doing reimbursements before, but it's always a first. So yeah, you alluded to this a little bit earlier when you were talking about, what Basil's done. But can you talk about what you think USG Finance has done well over the last year, as well as what, the sort of changes you like to make in the next year?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that Russell's done really, really well, as I'm sure you're specifically aware, is that he has improved the relationship with the SEC allocations committee and getting the budget in on time and doing a much, much better job and like just being visible to the student body and USG as a whole. One thing that I would like to do, I would like to continue that, but I would also like to build the finance committee a little bit. Right now, we're sitting at about 10 to 12 people, which is one of the smaller committees in USG. And I think expanding the committee size would help with just like visibility because I know that is a concern within USG is like everyone who's not in finance committee doesn't really know what we're doing. And so then there's like a what's happening if there's a mismanaging of funds. So just kind of expanding the committees, there are more people who first of all know that and can let other people know what's going on. And also like I know my friends who are in clubs have asked me about like how to start a club or how to get their funding and all of that. So I think expanding the finance committee would help with just knowledge and then also having a bigger committee makes things go faster as well.
It's interesting that you say that thing about visibility because I would say that finance is actually the side that most crew students interact with in
Mhm.
terms of USG. It's people set up clubs through USG more than they listen to general assemblies and what the different committees are doing. But I do agree though in terms of like people not understanding quite what the finance processes are. Do you think there needs to be greater explanation or transparency surrounding what USG funds, what it doesn't fund, how the finance committee makes their deliberations?
I think that our documentation, at least from my opinion, is pretty clear with the Treasurer 101 document and our guidelines. And I know Basil and the treasurers are all happy to answer those questions through email as well. I'm what I was like talking about there earlier is just like generally within USG, I feel like there's a disconnect with understanding what the finance committee does. Are going through like our bylaws changes process right now. So just finding that like understanding of what USG finance can and cannot do in terms of funding and like requirements for clubs and all that.
I got it. So I'm a bit familiar with USG funding guidelines, but not overly so. But I believe there's a cap of around $4,000 for clubs who apply for funding. But of course, some clubs are wildly more expensive than other clubs. You know, there's travel-based clubs, performance clubs, club
Mhm.
sports, that sort of thing. How do you think we can maintain like an equitable balance in USG's funding structure so that everyone gets what they need and no one is treated unfairly?
Yeah, so the $4,000 cap is for mass funding, and there are other funding sources throughout the semester, such as rolling funding, which is 750 for clubs that have been established. And then we also have co-sponsorships, which are really, really great for those bigger orgs that throw large events. I know TASA does that for their big market that they have every year. And there's not really like a cap per se on that. We have an allocated amount of money per semester that we can give for co-sponsorships. And then beyond that, we try to like encourage clubs to not request more than they'll need. They don't get to keep that and roll over. So with like smaller clubs that don't need as much money or clubs that just don't spend as much, that rollover does go into the next semester, and then we can do a smaller percentage cut on that $4,000. But overall, because of the number of clubs, it is difficult to, fully fund if clubs need like $10,000. And then to kind of touch on what you were saying about how to improve this, there is kind of a finance initiative going on right now led by Eric, who's one of the treasurers, which is trying to look at currently active clubs and kind of if there needs to be a change in requirements for clubs and filtering out clubs that are no longer active to kind of I guess, decrease the number of clubs, which would increase the percentage of the student activities fee that each club got.
Yeah, that's actually something I was going to ask for next. So oftentimes, clubs are set up for like a year, and then like they sort of die out because the leadership transition just like doesn't exist anymore. It's like set up for this specific purpose, yet they still take up funding from other clubs on campus. So is there a way that we can mitigate that? Like whether it's be increasing the number of people who join clubs that need to join a club for it to be established, or I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
So presently, we're trying to get a bylaws change done so that the number of people required to establish a club is 20 people outside of exec. The current requirement is 10, so that would definitely bump it up because the thought process is that 10 people is like a group of friends doing something for fun. 20 people is a larger requirement and could be like beyond the scope of a group of friends. I'm not saying that there are clubs under 20 people that don't have, great purpose. We have like the idea is to have exceptions for clubs like Case in Point, which have a cap because of performances and stuff like that. So that is one thing is increasing the number of people required to join a club. And then there's also, I don't know, what to call it other than like a pruning process where at some point we are going to look at all of the clubs that have re-registered because there is a re-registration process each year and determine if someone just saw the email in their inbox and filled it out or if they're actually like holding events holding meetings and stuff like that, which again is spearheaded by Eric and a few other people in the finance committee. And we will have to work with Todd Rasmussen to kind of figure out the logistical side of that. But that is something we're focused on.
Okay, that's good to hear. Speaking of funding clubs, the USG will be getting an 18% increase in their base allocation from the SEC. Have you put any thought as to how you'd like to distribute that within USG's budget? Do you want to put it all towards mass funding? And if so, like how are you gonna, make sure that these allocations are distributed appropriately?
Mhm. So I haven't given a ton of thought into that. But preliminarily, I think it would be great to split it between mass funding and rolling funding, because rolling funding is super important for things that like were not like conceptualized before mass funding, the deadline was required, or to kind of give like a boost to some events that didn't get fully funded. So if we increased rolling funding, then there would be like clubs submit rolling funding typically when they have an event already planned and they just need a little extra money. So I think that would be a way to get it to be a little bit more equitable and go above and beyond mass funding. But yes, the goal is to give it like the increase all back to clubs, and make sure that they can, you know, get the money they need, and hopefully be able to do a little bit more with that 18% increase.
Right. All right. So as you were saying though, USG can't fulfill all the needs of every single club and stuff like that. You guys do have a co-sponsorship program that I believe is still relatively new, in terms of, ways that you can partner with USG directly to get more funding. Have you put any thought as to like how you like to develop that, or if there are ways that you can have USG clubs apply to funding from other sources, such as, the allocations committee obviously is like a last resort, but UDC also has co-sponsorship opportunities, UPB has co-sponsorship opportunities. Is there like a framework that you'd like to develop for that?
Yeah, so we're currently in the finance committee talking about how to change co-sponsorships as well. One of the things is kind of upping the requirements for a co-sponsorship, which sounds counterintuitive because you would think that makes it harder for clubs to get funding. But we had, I think, like 10 co-sponsorship requests in our first week, which took up a lot of the budget, which also could be another place that we increase the budget with that 18% increase. But we would have clubs make flyers ahead of time that they would have advertising, which would prove that they have like the USG collaboration, but would also help them promote. And by making that a requirement, we would hope to see more um, attendance at these events. And then as for other sources, we do point clubs that cannot get any more funding from USG to SEC allocations. I sent an email like 2 days ago suggesting that. And as for UDC, UPB, and all of that, that's typically not somewhere we suggest people to go for funding, so much as like we see a club with a mission that aligns with them more. But I do think we're trying to develop a better understanding of the position of clubs within the umbrella organizations, so that they can find their niche, whether it be like with their mission or with funding as well. So that's something we're hoping to develop along with like the pruning process as we're going through all the clubs. That makes it easier to find like where they could collaborate more.
All right, great. That's all good to hear. I think that's all the main finance related questions I have. So just to end, this is a bit of a silly question, but you can take it seriously if you'd like. What do you love about Case Western Reserve, and what's one thing you wish you could change about it?
One thing I love about Case Western, and it's the reason I came here, is that I really feel like there's a spirit of collaboration instead of competition. I know I'm running for VP Finance, but I am pre-med, and I didn't want that like toxic pre-med environment. And at least in my group of friends, I've found it very welcoming and motivating community to be a part of. So that's what I love. And in terms of what I don't like, hmm. Gonna be honest, I'm living on top of the hill right now and I don't like the elephant stairs.
Elephant stairs, that's a hot take. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, I think Top of the Hill has more problems than the elephant stairs, to be honest, but it's
that is true. Yeah.
okay. All right. Well, good to do you have any last messages that you'd like to send to, either the student body or just the observer editorial board?
Um, Nothing other than super excited to see what the year holds. And excited to hopefully work with next year's exec board again.
Great. I know you're running unopposed, but good luck with your campaign and
Thank you.
yeah, have fun. All right. Thanks so much. It's been a pleasure.
Yep, thank you so much. Bye.